Well, we certainly understand that there's a huge tumult about discussions of gender equality in the workplace, and we wanted to bring a person of unique interest and someone who is communicating about this on a regular basis. We wanted to introduce to you Julie Kratz.
Julie.
Julie.
It says Julie.
It says Jenny. You wrote Jenny. It's Julie Kratz,
It says Julie.
founder and CEO of Pivot Point. Julie, how are you doing?
Excellent.
Do you
Excuse me.
answer?
Apparently, I lose my voice when called Jenny.
You don't answer to Jenny at all? Yeah.
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
More than welcome.
Do you have a sister named Jenny? That would be interesting.
I don't.
Not going to help me out there, are you? You could have. Right there. You could have. Yeah.
That's not why I'm here.
Well, tell us about your coaching business, Pivot Point, and what is it that you're up to around Indianapolis?
Yeah. So I started my own coaching business and speaking business about 3 years ago. I've always been very passionate about women and what will it take for women to be successful. We all know the statistics, unfortunately haven't changed much around women in leadership roles and equal pay. And obviously the political and social environment's one that's very interesting right now around this issue. A lot of people have asked me, like, did you know this was going to happen when you wrote a book about male allies?
Did you create this whole thing?
No, I did not have a crystal ball. I did not know this was going to happen. And it's really a great time of awakening. I think it's an opportunity for us to find a real path forward that's inclusive and supportive of women and men together.
I love that.
At the same time, not hypersensitive that you can't do your work either. I mean, you got to have this space where there's trust, there's equality, but you're all working together and moving ahead, and not tripping over scenarios.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. And having a safe place to share your story, to be empowered together. I think there's so many people with positive intent out there that want to help.
Yeah.
They're just not sure how to. And it's kind of a scary time when there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So having an open, engaging dialogue around these key issues is something I'm really passionate about.
Excellent.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you consider is the pivot point, and then kind of what you do to coach women through that time period?
Yeah. So pivot point's really a time when a woman's asking what's next. And so if you think about your career, my career, a lot of men and women in our careers, we have these series of pivot points, and we don't kind of have the old school career where it was I'm 30 years at the same company, I do this, then I do this, and there's this corporate ladder that I'm climbing. Today's world, millennials are likely to have 4 jobs by the time they're 32. And so if you think about that and all the pivot points that happen and will continue to happen in our careers, pivot points really designed, our tools are designed to help women find what's next. So find your purpose, find your passion, align it with the skills and strengths you already have. Perhaps there's some opportunities to sharpen some of those skills or tailor your message and how you communicate your why and your purpose and your resume and all the stuff that goes with that. But finding a succinct way to share your story with others so that they want to help you. You can connect with purpose intentionally.
That's an awesome package of information.
Isn't she cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you also have a book. Let's talk about that.
Do you want to pass them out?
Yeah,
So we can hold them
These
up?
are your copies.
Cool. Thank you.
Hot off the
Thank you.
presses here.
Thank you.
So the book is how male allies support women for gender equality, and that's a powerful title there. So tell us about what you've got going on here.
Yeah. So we really wrestled with this over the last year or so. I love to write. I love to engage in tools that I think are really going to help take us to the next level. And a year ago, I got extremely curious about what's a topic that's maybe not being talked about as much, or what's an area that's really game-changing for women, because, again, we know about the problems, but not so much the solutions. And I started talking with these wonderful men, which was kind of strange.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm talking about
Yeah,
women's issues. I hate to even say that. The challenges facing women in the workplace.
Yep.
And these amazing men were just like coming out of the woodwork. Like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I have a daughter. I have a wife. I had a single mother. I have had an experience with a powerful woman at work. I have all these great sources of inspiration. I want to help too. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm talking to a lot of dudes recently about women.
That is really weird.
Yeah, it was
all
weird.
at once. That's very odd.
It was weird. And then I have this wonderful male ally at home as well. So my husband, Rustin, shout out to him. He is a stay-at-home dad. He wrestles with a lot of issues too. And, unfortunately, our society isn't as welcoming about that too. And so him and I are having a few glasses of wine one night, and we're talking about men supporting women. I'm telling him, sharing for the first time, really articulating this book idea. And I wanted to call men that support women man champions.
Oh, I like that. And he vetoed it, probably.
And he looks at me and he's like, that is a terrible idea. Please don't do that. And I drank the rest of my glass of wine and I soaked in the feedback.
And you talked yourself out of it.
I'm like, yeah, maybe I should consider a different direction. And as I shared that with other men, they kind of frowned and were like, no.
Thoughts? Man? Nope.
Man champion?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, we got to know. We have a resounding no.
No. And that was what our poll shared as well.
Yeah.
A big goose egg on that one. So we toyed around with different titles, different ideas, and he actually was the inspiration for one. My husband said, it's one. It's us in it together. Mm-hmm. And I didn't fully understand what that meant early in the research, but as I engaged with experts on this topic around the country in a variety of roles and women that had engaged male allies, male ally came out very strong as a term that men, although they still prefer not to be called anything at all. They just want to be, hey, I'm just supporting humans.
Right.
Which is great. I wish there were more of that kind of behavior. But as they talk to women, they're like, not so much. Not all dudes are male allies, right?
Oh, yeah.
We got to call them something.
Yeah, they need a title for
So
sure.
the term ally, the reason I really like it is because it signals this side by side that we're in it together. I'm not here to rescue you as a man. I'm not going to treat you like my daughter.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with the
play.
champion thing. Is that
Right.
it's almost like you're
Ownership or something.
You're protecting
Right.
and getting in front of the woman. An ally is side by side.
Yep. Yeah, and you're in it together.
Right.
So I'm here to kind of coach you, support you. Maybe I play a little bit of a mentorship role.
Right.
I'm advocating for you. I'm sponsoring you, speaking up when you're not there on your behalf. But I'm not here to rescue you. I'm not going to, support that behavior long term because that's not what's going to help women. That's not going to enable, successful change long term. It's not sustainable.
If I could, it gives a what you're doing and this concept of male allies. It breaks open the old stereotype of the feminist movement without any want to have anything to do with males.
Yeah.
And right there, it's such a breakthrough moment. Is that we're in it together.
Right.
Is that we should have each other's back, and it should not be adversarial. And the sheer fact that we should, regardless of gender, we should be helping each other, right? Mm-hmm. But if there's support to be able to break down some stereotypes and some environments in corporate America where you could use some help from your counterpart that happens to be another gender, right?
Yeah.
That's where we should be, right?
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Aaron, because the term, when I asked male allies if they considered themselves to be a feminist or supportive of feminism, there was kind of this like, I don't know about that. I mean, it's unfortunate because this was part of the inspiration too when I went to the women's movement, the marches earlier this year. And this has kind of been the catalyst of this whole series of events we've seen happen and unfold until now. I remember seeing men around there and asking them if they thought of themselves as a feminist too. And they're like, no, but I'm here supporting a women's march. So it's just interesting how much feminism was so polarizing. It was us versus them. It was just women. And it's kind of controversial even today for me to say that because I have women that I consider to be like in my tribe that are very supportive of this, that are like, no, I'm a feminist. Like we need to carry that torch as long as we can. But
That's interesting.
Don't know. I mean, I don't know if
you can carry it to the point of I tread lightly.
I know.
You can carry it to the point of fracturing a relationship.
Right.
You can carry it to the point of using it as a cudgel to separate as opposed to unify.
Yeah,
as a deadly weapon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it's divisive. I think we can all kind of agree that the term is not inclusive of men.
Right.
It really had a time and a place, and it certainly has accomplished so much around awareness, around the challenges facing women. where I think feminism, and as a student of women's studies and reading lots of feminist pieces and calling myself a feminist and still do, but I don't think we mapped out a set of solutions very well with that. And it was kind of a zero-sum game that was pointed like, if a woman gets at the table, a man must leave the table. And that's not really the message. The message around one is no. In fact, the data shows when you get more women at the table, there's just more seats at the table because organizations are growing. There's more collaboration. There's better ideas. Better decisions are made. I mean, 80% of consumers in our country are women. And if you don't have them at the decision-making table in your organization.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
You know, and McKinsey has data that shows 16% higher profitability associated with gender equality at the highest leadership levels in organizations. So there's just so many statistics that show when we get people together, the pie's bigger. It's not my slice is bigger than yours.
I don't want to give away all of the book, but I do want to touch on some of the actionable strategies you gave for the cross-gender partnership, because I think you have some very interesting perspectives on that.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I am a female. There are males on the other side of that wall. What can we do to, obviously we approach things very differently.
And I have a female name, so.
Yeah, and it's even spelled the female, like I thought
the female
almost.
way.
I know.
I'm bonding here. It's Irish, and we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I figured there was a backstory.
And he doesn't have a complex about it at all.
Boy named Sue. But, hey.
So, actionable strategies.
Yes.
Can you tell us any of them?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. There are ways to take action on this. And that's part of the feedback we've gotten overwhelmingly with one is that there's tools in each section of the book. So basically there's 4 key strategies. And we start with empathy. We talk about storytelling, speaking up together, and work and life and how they coexist for women and men together. So each section has something for male allies to do, something for women leaders to do. And so what you can do is like really partner up with your male ally as a woman and say, hey, let's work on this together. Let's kind of go through and map out what this relationship looks like. So it gives you tools to have a productive conversation, a productive mentorship, relationship, just male allyship in general. So if I were to encourage people to take action on this, the Ally Workbook's available on our website. We can talk about that at the end and where to find that. But I would say as a male ally or somebody that wants to be more of a male ally, one of the easiest things to do is just ask a woman what it's like to be her. I mean, really. I mean, can you?
We're not ready for that.
Can you imagine? What? So some of this requires a little bit of vulnerability, dudes. I get it.
And some wine.
Yes, wine does help. But some of the male allies, they said, I just cared about what was going on. And I saw her, whether it was struggle in a meeting or not be included in things or her voice was spoken over, all the things that tend to happen more to women than men generally. And I would just ask her, like, how does that feel? Like, what's that like? Like, I just genuinely want to know and just listen. And that's the thing that male allies really do. Listen.
Wow.
They don't go into rescue mode. I want to solve all your problems right now.
See, we want to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
fixers.
like marriage, right?
Exactly.
Same thing happens. Women are constantly saying, no, I just want you to listen. I don't want you to solve my problem. Same thing goes a lot for women in the workplace. We just need a coach. We need a sounding board. We need somebody to just bounce ideas off of and be there for us. And sometimes just be that voice when we can't be there, when we're not visible physically or not able to be there. Male allies' voices can amplify those of women.
I love it.
No, it's great, but boy, there's some tough conversations that, you're opening up the opportunity, right? But males as well as females need to be ready to not go everywhere in the conversation. It needs to be productive, and there needs to be a goal, right? Because it can get squirrely. Right.
It does. It does. And I think being okay with that initially, letting some of that squirreliness happen.
Right.
But you're right. I think having some boundaries and some clear goals in mind with your conversation. So from a woman's perspective, one thing we argue is that you really need to start with what's in it for men. Articulate the benefits of male support and then narrow in on, hey, what role do I see you playing in that journey? Here's where I'm going. Here's how you could help. Would you want to be my mentor? That's not an easy question to ask from a woman's perspective too.
Right.
So to your point back to trust, being vulnerable with each other and building that trust early on in a relationship. I was at a women's luncheon today, And a woman came up to my booth and she shared, I work for 2 men. I'm one of the only women on our team, 20-person team, small business here in Indianapolis. And she said, but they're so cool. Like they tell me if you ever feel like we're treating you like the only woman or doing things that are different because you're a woman, like you got to call us out on that.
Yeah.
Call us out. And like that's what good trust looks like, good vulnerability on their part. And she said, oh, don't worry, I will. And so that was really helpful because this week they had an event where the men weren't dressed. Something about their attire wasn't quite right. And she's very well known for being very well dressed. And so one of the partners came up to her and said, hey, we're not asking you this because you're the woman, but because you know how to dress well.
Because you dress yourself better than we do. That's funny.
But because they'd had that conversation already.
Well, there was a level of awareness there. They knew to be aware. Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
She knew that they weren't coming at it from that place. And so having these intentional conversations and just saying,
that's really funny.
I want to support you. Please tell me if I'm not, because I sometimes don't know. And that's the thing. A lot of this is gender socialized from a very young age. We're wired, as women to please others and, to not take risks. And men are like, take charge and do what you need to do. I didn't get that message when I was younger, not as much, right?
Did you get that message from a lumberjack?
No, but I did wear flannel.
Buckus was her father.
I was a fan of flannel.
So what are some of the commonalities you hear as a coach?
Yeah, the commonalities
amongst as you interact with and help coach this type of scenario where you've got the women looking for male allies, right? And what are some of the common questions that are asked in this space?
Yeah, so women that are looking for male allies, I think what they're curious about is who are those men that want to support her? And I think sometimes it's hard as women to ask for help, to extend our hand for something that we perceive to be selfish. Women historically...
Hold on, I just had an Oprah moment with that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And we kind of compromise our own selves a lot for others, right? It's kind of the disease to please, make everyone else happy around me, especially working mothers. I mean, this is the thing I hear often. Like, I don't have time for this stuff. Like, it's just... I got kids at home. I got a husband to take care of. I got a house to take care of. I do my 9 to 5, and I just want to kind of peace out. And I think it's really unfortunate to look at working mothers this way. I mean, there more women than men graduate from college. We have amazing skills. And then all of a sudden we kind of treat them like we just put them on a shelf when they have little people. And it's like, I don't understand this. Right? So how can we really demonstrate to these women, like, no, we care. Our organization cares about you. We want you to have, the career you want to have. And maybe that looks different when you have little people. That's totally fine. Zero judgment there. But as male allies, maybe for her thinking, I don't know who wants to help or how to help, maybe we facilitate that a little bit, whether that's a mentorship program or some structured, training or workshops around coaching skills and things that are needed to have these successful relationships, these cross-gender relationships.
I want to ask about 2 campaigns. One, I want your feedback on the Me Too movement.
Oh, boy.
And then 2, I'd also like to hear about the He for She campaign that you all
He for She's great.
And kind of how you see those aligning.
Oh, boy. Yeah, me too. It's so funny. I get asked about this constantly, and I don't know if I have the PC answer just yet.
We don't need PC here.
No. We had shitty teas and pimp slaps here earlier.
Yes. So first point, I think it's a really safe place for women to share. With Me Too, it's great that the stories are coming out. As I've communicated with most women, everyone has a story. And I just realized, I personally didn't have a story like that, or I didn't think I did until this came about. And I'm starting to have coffee talk conversations with women and realize, like, oh, yeah, that did happen. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Maybe there was more going on there than I thought. So great that there's a safe place to share. That the second piece of it, and I think we just have to be really mindful of, is the fear that we might be creating for men in the workplace.
Right.
So many organizations I'm talking to are saying, yeah, we got to get that sexual harassment training like going January 1, and it's like, ooh, that's a very reactive Exactly. A very reactive approach. And, you know, what I'd hate to happen is what happened 30 years ago with feminism. And, you know, men, we locked them in a room, was like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or you'll get in trouble. And so what did men do? They kind of like did their own thing and didn't include women in it because they were scared. I don't want that to happen again, where we just tell men what not to do. It would be so great to wrap around a positive around that conversation that still is very firm and draws those boundaries on what's appropriate and not appropriate. But what can you do? Not just what you can't do. Let's talk about what you can do. And that's where allyship really has a great wrapper around
that's a bridge
this.
building right there. That's keep on going. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I see it as kind of a wrapper of, hey, let's not do this. These are the boundaries, the parameters of what a good relationship looks like in the workplace, which apparently we need a lot more clarity about. Locking a door with a button? I mean, I did not see that coming.
I am not okay with that.
That's a freak and a half. And let's just call him out for what he is. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And I watched him like for my professional life.
And it's like
so
you
troubling.
feel like your uncle has personally wronged you. It's weird. I agree. And like Mario Batali now, did you hear that?
No.
That one also, I don't like that. I don't like that. That's hard for me to just. I can't wrap my mind.
So let's go a little bit into different spaces. You're seeing the crumbling of this Hollywood edifice, this fictionalized side of Hollywood and media.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there's a broken trust that's happening in society that the figureheads that were the bastions of moral compass or decency, right?
And we thought we had common values with these people that we saw and reverenced in our culture and our society.
Well,
and
we invite them into our homes every day. I mean,
they're part of our lives, our family,
yes,
how we grew up. And so it really shows that, man, we do have some real issues we need to solve. Like, it's not getting better. And that's one of the things people love to tell me. Like, Julie, the statistics are getting better. Women are more included. I remember when I was growing up, this happened. And now that doesn't. Are you sure about that? Because the statistics really aren't that different. And obviously the behaviors that are happening behind closed doors are still not so good.
Not good.
So it does bring some urgency to the issue. It gets it out on the table. It's going to, promote accountability. I just would hate for it to continue to go in kind of this negative direction.
Well, there's a hyper reactivity to this entire environment. And what you're doing is kind of standing, kind of like what Gandalf, do not pass this space, because it can get into a really dark place, hyper reaction, and all of a sudden now you have such an accusatory environment, right? That it's going to be very difficult to pull back from. There's going to be a lot of sharp elbows happening, and I mean, I think we're smart enough as a society to find our plum, so to speak, and be able to get that middle ground a lot quicker than history has shown in the last 30 years, 40 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have tools in place now to spread information so much more quickly. And so that should promote positive change more quickly. And a lot of what I think we're seeing is women feeling a lot more comfortable speaking up. And that's so critical. That's one of the strategies in the book that came up loud and clear is male allies didn't speak up for her. They spoke up with her. But she needs to have the courage to speak up too. And so many people will share with me, it sometimes happens where men will say, well, women just need to speak up more. Well, you know what happens when we do that. We get called not so nice names sometimes. And so, but if a male ally can speak up with us or call out like, wait a second, dude, like not cool.
Then he is too.
Then he can be called that too.
We just had an interview on our other show, Edge of the Web, with an author, Kim Scott, that wrote a book, Radical Candor.
Yes.
And I'm seeing a parallel in this space, and it has to do with paying attention to who's receiving the information. It's not just a one-way communication. You've got to know how some radical candor and some true honesty in the workplace is being received, and you got to be able to adjust and communicate correctly, right? So on top of everything else, it's also being able to know how to listen.
Yep.
And know and on top of that, know what type of non-conscious cues and clues you're actually broadcasting as a male or a female, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's more of an awareness of self that's starting to emerge. It's not about a punching bag scenario where he said, she said. It's, okay, there's an issue. There has been an issue, and we're starting to see the transparency, the veil being removed now. Now we need to figure out how best to work together so we're not in the fight of our lives here. You know?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought up radical candor, because certainly Kim's work is a testament to this. And a lot of our male allies provide feedback. You know, my male allies tell me stuff all the time that I don't want to hear, but I need to hear. Yep. Like, Julie, you're looking a little tired. Are you taking care of yourself? Like, thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad.
Thank you. I'm fine.
I'm glad that you did. But sometimes you need to hear those things. And then conversely, women need to have honest conversations with their male allies. And just one quick short story. My friend Shauna here in Indy, she's wonderful. She read the book and helped edit it and all sorts of great stuff. So she reads that chapter and she's like, oh my gosh, my boss interrupts me all the time. And so she chooses to have an honest conversation that she normally would not have. And so they go for a walk together side by side, just like allies do. And they're walking through the park, which is also a good place to have
a good neutral location. Yes.
Conversation that might be tough. And she says to him, hey, I got to tell you something. It's not easy for me to share this, but I care about you. And I know we have a good relationship, so I feel like I can just say it. So I'm just going to say it. And he's like, what? Well, you interrupt me. And then there's like 10 seconds of silence. And he turns to her and stops in his tracks. And he's like, I didn't know I did that. And she's like, you do. And just when I'm about to have a good idea, you jump in with your idea. And then I forget about my idea. Or I just feel like we go a different direction than where I feel like I have a lot more value to add that you're not hearing. And he just looked at her wide-eyed and said, you got to let me know when I do that next time. But the beauty of this moment that they had is 3 days later, they're talking and he does it. But instead of her having to call him out,
he
caught it.
He go, oh, whoop. And it was like one of those moments. And she said he kept doing that. And after like the 5th time of him doing that, he realized and self-corrected his own behavior.
Retrained himself.
Exactly. But as women, we can't expect men to just know what we want, right? Know what we're thinking, know what the challenges are. We've got to communicate it and have an ask from them. And they take feedback really well. And to your point about being direct, I think being intentional in our conversations is so key to make that happen.
Yeah, and there needs to be trust. There needs to be candor, and again, these positions that people take, and this kind of ruinous empathy that is also a key concept in her book that it just smacked me upside the head. Is that you literally can empathize yourself away from being able to help someone.
Yeah.
So more broadly, just for a moment here, empathy in the workplace. Where do you see the level of empathy in the American workplace right now, and what's your assessment of improving what can be done inside the workspace?
Yeah, empathy is we recommend these conversations start from a place of empathy. As male allies, I think empathy means recognizing, where she might be coming from, where other amazing women in your life might be coming from. Gather some information, ask them for their story. And I know that's kind of a big step, but for male allies, or what I call male allies on the fringe that just want to be but don't know how, challenge for you.
Yep.
Ask a woman in your life that you care about, tell me your story. Tell me what it's like to be you. Tell me what it's like to be a woman in this country right now. I mean, whatever question you want to ask.
Wow.
And just listen. I've had men do this, and they're like,
amazing.
The way women respond, like, can you think about if like a man like you cared about asked you to, oh my gosh. And I think men are like, whoa, that's going to be like 10-hour conversation. I'm not like having a girlfriend chat.
Right.
But that's not it. And those conversations don't have to be long.
And you can say, keep it under 3 minutes.
Right. I need like the 3-minute version. Right. And just
give me
listen.
the cliff notes of what's going on over there.
Right.
I'll accept 5 bullet points. Go.
But what that does is that helps you channel that empathy so much more towards other women in your life, and having a deep curiosity about people that are different than you. When I chose to pursue this line of work, I had to be curious about things I didn't know, people I didn't know what it was like to be them. And man, have I benefited from that. I have gotten so much smarter and so much more empathetic and just a better human being as a result of that curiosity.
You have a great energy.
Oh, thank you.
You do.
Thank you.
You do.
Channel-
I needed to flag it for you that you have a great energy.
I'll empathize with
my
that
inner
moment.
Yoda.
Ooh, look at
And
that.
that's what good male allies are. If you like Star Wars, I did not watch it until a few years ago. I got into it. My husband forced me to watch it. And
Good for you.
As soon as Yoda came on, I was like, I love him. Because he's like a coach, right? But male allies, that's what, like, be a Yoda. That's what women need, is just be the Yoda. They have the force within themselves. Women have the power within themselves.
See,
I don't
that is
watch
awesome.
those movies.
Stop it.
I know you give me a
need
compliment
to
when I
empathize
went
with
down
me
Star
a little
Wars.
bit. You need to embrace the Star Wars
I don't need to
side.
watch your movies.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
They're really good, Brittany. I mean, honestly, once it gets to Yoda, that was game over for me. I'm like, I love this. Now I understand.
That made it valuable to you.
Yes.
Yoda brought you value. That's funny.
It's not
I
too
love
late.
Star Wars is
Well-
is an epic of this generation. It's like the the Iliad. I mean, literally, it's all that in a bag of chips.
And women,
Well, okay then.
women are starting to come into it. We've got Ray, who's
Yeah.
kind of a badass.
Yeah.
My niece loves Ray.
That's what my daughter was for Halloween.
Oh,
It's so hard to find a strong woman costume.
or any of her toys and stuff too.
Yes, she's got some of those though. But yeah, I think just thinking about, back to your question about empathy, it's such an important place to get to. And from a woman's perspective, let's please empathize. If there's a few men in the room, I go to women's events all the time, and the few dudes in the room, you can just sense like how tense they are. Of like, I know I'm different. I know. Let's empathize with them.
Yeah.
Like they're choosing to be there. Why should we shun
All the
them
heads
away?
turn around.
Yeah.
There's a guy.
Yeah.
Man, there's a man. There's a man here.
I sat with a man today at an event, and Josh, who works right around here, and he's like, "Yeah, I know I'm different. Like, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Like, I think you're a male ally. You're helping women out." And he's like, "Funny that you should mention that. I just helped out with a women's conference, and like." Just inviting them into the conversation, engage them. They're not the enemy. If a man wants to help, let's
Take the help.
let him help.
Yep. Thanks,
Don't- yeah,
Josh.
yeah, and
Thanks
don't
for
be-
your
yeah.
help, Josh. I don't know you, but I support what you did. I love it. I love everything you're about. All of this is excellent. Good stuff.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
This is very good stuff.
All right. So to wrap up, maybe some parting thoughts for ladies in the workplace. Albeit it may be a big company, mid-sized, teeny company, tiny agency. What's the first thing?
Yeah. So if you have an employee resource group,
Yep.
a women's group, invite men into it. If they're not already included, male allies should absolutely be extended into that. For women, other things that you can do is if you don't have a mentor, a sponsor, someone that's advocating for your career, who could be that role? And it doesn't have to just be a woman. I used to think that. Think about what men could also serve that role.
Right.
A lot of times they're in a better position because they still are the majority of the decision makers in organizations. So again, think about ways that you can engage male allies. And then the third piece is organizations, right? Think about if you're thinking about sexual harassment training or whatever's on top of mind for next year. I think more organizations are getting serious about diversity and inclusion and having metrics to track that. Think about the positive message you can send in this time of kind of heightened fear around Me Too and sexual harassment. What does good look like? Let's not just tell people what not to do.
Right.
Let's think about what to do. So I think women inside organizations sharing that message with folks in your organization that we want to be about something positive too.
I love it.
Good stuff, Julie.
All right. So you can check out Julie and what she's doing at Pivot Point on the website. If we can throw that up on the screen, nextpivotpoint.com. Twitter is Next Pivot Point. Facebook, Next Pivot
Yep.
Point. Looks
Very
like you got all the
consistent.
socials.
Nailed it.
Nextpivotpoint.com.
We really appreciate and applaud what you're doing in this space because I think you're the sober one in the room, so to speak.
You guys are drunk?
Maybe literally
This whole
two.
time?
None of your business.
She's triggering me. No, I mean, in this state of society right now, it's so hyper reactive, and so many people can be bruised by some reckless comments. And on all sides of the equation. So, I mean, this middle ground of finding allies and actually moving together correctly and with support of each other. I mean, that's the space in which everybody needs to pursue. So thank you so much for doing that.
you.
Appreciate the book, and we certainly
thank you.
we certainly recommend all of our audience pick up the book One: How Male Allies Support Women and for Gender Equality.
He's getting choked up.
I'm overcome.
It's okay to show emotion. You're a man. It's okay.
I'm gonna cry.